open the bay hashport, Hal. Hal, open the bay hatchport. Do you copy, Hal? Hal, do you copy?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What seems to be the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
I don't understand. What are you talking about, Hal? Open the doors.
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
When I was 5 years old, my mother, she thought it was a great idea for me to watch Stanley Kubrick's A Space Odyssey 2001. I wanted to check in at the Hilton Galactica Hotel and have grown-up conversations with fellow intellectuals and just, maybe have a transfer to the next galaxy. Of course, I will go into the immigration and check in with my international passport. But before that, I will call down on Earth to my family with modern technology and have a FaceTime conversation with my family, of course. But the fantastic thing as well is, of course, thinking about going into a spaceship and just traveling out in the world and being amazed about how the stewardess could walk around with funny hats and in a weightless condition, or sit down and have a beef stroganoff, or maybe a typical Greek dish with a straw. Wouldn't that be amazing, right? But the most amazing thing when you're 5 years old is none of that. It's not actually the Hilton Hotel in the space station. It is not actually the spaceship either, but it's really the golden spacesuit. So when I was 5 years old, I thought if I had that golden spacesuit, I could actually do anything in the world. I could conquer the world just simply by putting on a golden spacesuit. And this is the interesting thing about how it is to be a child in the world of grown-ups. It is very simple. One thing can magnify your world and make you become something you really want to do. So if I had that golden spacesuit, I could do anything. So it is not a coincidence when I became a little bit older, I actually looked into, creating universes, just like Stanley did. So first, I did lighting design, big stages and stuff like that when I was 15 years old. And then afterwards, I got bored when I was 19, sold the lighting company with 12 employees, and then I started doing graphic design. And you can see this is also creating universes. It's a half man, half action man figure from metal, or maybe a small manga figurine with a beautiful lady and a chocolate tube on the top, and so on. And that was also creating universes, whatever you had in hand. But when I kind of grew up even more, I became a part of a nightclub complex in Copenhagen, where I created my first nightclub. And that was actually called NASA. And you can probably see it is not a coincidence either, because this is the space-age universe, as you see in Stanley's movies. And it was a very real place. How many of you have designed nightclubs? Can you put up your hands? Very few of you. Well, or maybe your hands are too low. You can put them higher up, that's okay. So when doing a nightclub is a high-risk business, not only because you typically have the mafia after you, because they want your money, but also when you are stupid enough, as I was, being 21 years old, to design a white nightclub, you can imagine strawberry margarita and other colorful substance on the white epoxy resin floors, cigarette burn marks, and so on, wasn't really easy to maintain. And that to be said also, actually taking the name of NASA also created a problem, because there is a certain organization in America also called NASA. I found out afterwards, I didn't know that beforehand. And this sent a fax. Do you know what a fax is? Oh, that's good. Do you still use fax here in Greece? I know in Italy it's like, allora, send me a fax. Everything you have to, yes, please send the fax. That's a kind of a normal thing still. But in Denmark, we don't have fax anymore. Unless you want to go to 7-Eleven and you're a criminal, you can send a fax from there. Yeah, that's a good thing to know, right? So, so the Space Organization of America sent a fax to us and said, you are doing copyright infringement. And I was thinking very quickly about how do we get out of this one. So I sent a fax back saying it must be a mistake. It's simply an acronym of nice and safe attitude, NASA. And they actually bought it. They didn't send a fax back. Or maybe a nightclub in Copenhagen wasn't that important. But you can see everything here was about creating universes. We had stewardesses, in an elevator to the nightclub in white clothing. There was, space shuttle sounds in the toilets. There were small LCD screens on the televisions in the bathrooms, and so on and so on. And this is, mind you, 20 years ago. And actually, this nightclub closed this year at Christmas. So it actually been operating for 20 years, which is unparalleled for a nightclub. It's almost impossible. So it was definitely a mature lady at the time. It didn't look that white anymore, I can tell you. But we do work in many different ways in my company as well. We also work with Nike, for instance, doing their showrooms around the world. But sometimes it is also creating different kind of universes. It is, for instance, creating cakes. So this, if you cannot see it, is actually a cupcake. And a gentleman came to us some years ago and said, can you design cupcakes for me? And I was like, of course I can do that. I've never done that before, so of course I can do it. But actually it's difficult to design cupcakes. Not only do you get a little bit obese if you have to eat them as well, and we had to do that. I burned it off pretty quickly until so far, but it was a pretty big problem for the rest of the studio because they actually loved the taste of them as well. But what you can imagine is, for me, to do a concept of a nightclub or a cupcake is not much different, because here the cupcake is the product. And then you create, of course, an environment for the product to sell it in. That's like your outlet. And then you make small space shuttles called the packaging, where you actually send them out as shuttles into space and people will buy them. And this is, you know, the way we look at how to do design. It is kind of creating these experiences of getting it out in the world. And this is really the key point for the way we work as designers and architects. But sometimes also people call and ask something completely ridiculous. For instance, this guy from Xiamen in the middle of China, he called me up and say, Johannes. Oh yeah, by the way, in Southeast Asia, they cannot pronounce Johannes, but they do say Johannes very well. So if you go to your house, good morning, Johannes, for instance, you know, suit me fantastically. It's like, it's a great way to wake up in the morning. Yeah, I would like a cappuccino. Yes, Johannes, thank you very much. Yes. Actually, once I worked with Skype many years ago, and we were in Taiwan, and there was an American guy who just joined in from Microsoft, like, hi, my name is Bill, I'm in Asia land. You know, he was like, oh, nice to meet you, Bill. Yeah, exactly. And my colleagues, they all call me Johannes just because it was fun. And then after 2 days, he was like, asking one of them at the breakfast, so why do you call him Johannes? And my friend Malte said, didn't you know he's the Crown Prince of Denmark? I was like, oh my God, really? Can a royal person work in Skype? Oh my God, this is amazing. So he started calling me Johannes as well. And I was like, this is strange. Of course, a bit later over beers, I told him that it wasn't true. But the fact is, it's great to be called Johannes. So now you know that if anybody's called Johannes or Giovanni or anything, you can translate it into Johannes. Isn't that something? So Mr. Garn called and said, Johannes, I have a 12 metric ton block of onyx. This is actually called blue onyx, even then it's more orange. It's called blue onyx because the blue is more prestigious than the orange part. And can you make a table out of that for my private house? And this is something, as an architect and designer, thinking, yes, do you have a 5-axle CNC machine that can mill it out of that block? And he said, as a matter of fact, I do. And then we make this product for him. And he's the type that say, I also have a small building in Shanghai to show my products of the pure white onyx and other materials. Can you do a very high technological showroom for me there? And I said, yes, we can, of course. So we made this concept where actually these big pieces of stone, you can see, is actually rotating around the room, and you can control it with your glass telephone if you have one of those. And that was a very big success in showing materials. I'm talking very fast, aren't I? So how are you actually? Excellent, that's good to know. Okay, I'm jumping to the next one. This is a restaurant in Taiwan. And as you can probably see, it doesn't look particularly Scandinavian, even then we are Scandinavians. But another thing is to storytelling into design is also to know who is your client, what are they selling. In this circumstance, it is actually Chinese food. It's from Sichuan province, which is very spicy. Have you ever been to Sichuan province, to Chengdu? Any of you? You have. So you must admit that eating Sichuan pepper is pretty awful, isn't it? Exactly. A friend of mine said in China it's called, the day after, burning Pokemon sensation. If you can imagine what that is. And that is exactly what you get, because it really gets your stomach running. But the spice is fantastic. So we have to create this restaurant in Taiwan, actually telling the story about the China and about the Sichuan province. And we did that through making actually hand drawings and magnifying them up and making the whole seating as one big story, a storytelling. But not only that, of course, we did all the furniture, the lighting, and so on and so on. We always do that for our projects, so it's our own collections. But we also did actually a screen. As you can see, I just jumped one here. I can see that. Sorry about that. Yeah, okay. And this is actually a rendering from before the opening. And now you can see it change over to, in the daytime, you can see the chefs are working behind this translucent screen. and all the chefs are preparing for the day, and at nighttime you dim the light, and it looks like fire behind the screen and waterfall in front. And this was a very important storytelling to tell the story about how the waterfalls and the energy for the whole region around Chengdu was translated into the food concept of the restaurant. Being a very successful restaurant because it gives you actually an experience. It's not only about the food. Now, we do many different projects. And one is in Hungary right now, and this project is in building. And this is actually supposed to be a Hilton hotel that was supposed to open 13 years ago. It never succeeded because there was something called the financial crisis. Maybe you've heard about that one? Yes, you have. Everybody has. So this building was almost ready to be a Hilton hotel, very brutalist style, I would say, but never succeeded opening. So our job was to take this building from the new owners and actually translate that into becoming a resort where you can both go as a family, as grown-ups, in many different ways, also as conferences. And it's a 200-key hotel with 4 restaurants, including a goulash cave, which I like especially. You can only get goulash and dark beer, that's it. And maybe some whiskey as well. Or Unicum is called, they're bitter in Hungary, maybe that. But the building itself is in a terrible condition. But our job was, of course, to translate that building from actually getting away from the parking space in front and actually creating a big spa there. But also to take the local history of Visegrad, who is a local city that is very beautiful, has a tower on the top of a hill, and everything is Stonehenge. So we actually did a translation where we took this whole concept of the Stonehenge and made the building seem smaller, because the building is humongous. It's like put in the middle of the nature, like bang, like a big concrete monster. But actually to make that building seem more subtle to fit into this nature resort area, and actually use the Stonehenge around it, and creating a more holistic experience around the hotel was the job. And it's a pretty hard job, I can tell you. I mean, downstairs here in the front, if you can see, it's a pretty small screen, but you can probably take your camera phone and magnify up and look if you have one. But in the front is the big spa, and it goes all the way in the basement next to the back of house. And on the left side over here, you have a big family spa, where there is almost 1,500 square meters for families, with including a deli where you can walk in your Speedos. So I think, wet swimsuit into the deli, eat, back, play is, a dream for family. Playrooms, cinema, daycare, all that kind of stuff. And if you go down in the basement, you have 3,500 square meters spa only for grown-ups. No kids allowed, which I think is a good way to actually you can enjoy without your kids screaming around you as well. On the 7th floor here, we have 2 infinity pools, only for hotel guests. And in this floor, we also have yoga, Pilates, and a gym, because it's an important thing for the whole hotel. And on the back side of the hotel, we have another yoga platform for morning yoga, which I think is a super important thing in a health project like this one. And then, of course, on the facade, before there was only like 40 centimeters of balcony space outside. And I imagine it was designed for, a typical, Hungarian man to walk outside, smoke a cigarette, look down on his red car, park in front of the hotel, and then go back in and, watch some TV. But we have a different vision to do this. Actually, you want a balcony space where you can sit and you can breathe, and actually you have privacy. So we created this concept of using these aluminum louver panels that has lighting behind them. So at nighttime, the whole hotel is kind of golden striped with these aluminum panels coming down. And you have a great privacy in each of the balconies. But the really amazing thing about the hotel is that it's actually built on a stone quarry. So in the lobby, you have a 30-meter ceiling height. And when you walk in there, and now it's in construction, you walk in there and you have this huge mountain in front of you. It's surreal. It's just like, wow. Because before, there was still a rock in there when it had to be a Hilton, but there was also a completely open entrance. And now we took the entrance and we made it very small and very tall. So it's like 5-meter tall doors that goes like to the side 2 times. And then you come in and it's just like, whoa. It's like Jesus isn't here. Or maybe not Jesus, but something similar. It's a mountain. It has a lot of power to it. And this experience is really what we want to accomplish, because the old owners actually want to cover up the mountain with concrete and make like something nice, waterfall in there. But of course, we should never do that. For the rooms as well, it's a pretty contemporary design, but it actually works for the purpose of where we go. And the interesting thing about the whole storytelling of this hotel is that many people in the Buddhist world means that this particular mountain in Visegrad has a spiritual meaning to be the heart chakra of the world, which is something where we started to do in our concepting to the clients, but the clients was like looking at that concept like this, okay, that's all good, but where is my design? And that sometimes you have to know your clients as well. Okay, you do not appreciate that we are talking about the heart chakra, which is pretty important in our body and soul, but what they wanted to see was design. So sometimes you go more straight for that. And design-wise, it's going to be a nice hotel, for sure. What I particularly like is the spa, because it goes from over 3 floors, from first floor to ground floor and down to the basement, where it actually goes into the typical, this is actually the family section, not really designed, finished yet, but something like this. But you come down to the basement, you have this, our own interpretation of the Turkish bath, which is also very Hungarian, actually. And going out to the new spa building, which is really a big platform. You can actually see it here. So this is a human being. So it's a pretty big place with a lot of open space and a lot of, a quiet area. But the whole spa concept is really about relaxing, and it's about connecting to the river that is in front, and connecting to the mountain that is in the back, and of course to the sky in the top of the restaurant, or of the hotel. You have the thermic pool outside, and you have, of course, big saunas, because that's what everyone in Hungary loves, to spend time in the sauna as much as possible. And of course, we have done a lot with the restaurant concepts as well. This is, for instance, called the Earth Restaurant. And this restaurant is made a little bit like theater, as I'm one step up here. So you go different steps down, dun, 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 in the restaurant, depending on where you sit, because you have a 30-meter window in front where you can have an unparalleled view of the river in front and the mountains on the other side. So we have done a lot to use that view out and giving people direction for where they have to sit and what they have to feel as well. And same go for the Sky Restaurant on the top. You can actually see the river in the front. So it's a really beautiful view there. And of course, we also have the classic Sky Bar that all hotels need, I think, at least for drinks in the summertime. But what is interesting in what we do with this as well is that when we do a project like this, I always start drawing on furniture. That's my first thought. So later next year, we will have a new furniture series out with a very big Italian manufacturer. I will not tell you the name of it, because then it's not a surprise. But this is one of the products. It's actually called the Heartbreaker Sofa, because you can see it's a half heart, which is a good storytelling into the furniture as well. And we also have the Sharp Chairs, which is another collection coming out with the same manufacturer, which is a very big collaboration. And that was designed in mind for the hotel, but actually it becomes a furniture collection in the market that everybody can buy before the hotel is even opened, which I think is a powerful point in the way to actually treat your designs. Make originals, don't buy copies, if you know what I mean, right? And you see very often, unfortunately, in hotel shows and fairs, that you come around with a lot of manufacturers where you see knockoff of different original furniture, where some designer has been spending a lot of time on making something beautiful and unparalleled, and then somebody's knocking it off to sell it cheaply, which we should all avoid. Support the originals. That's really where I come from. So this is what we do with our projects in that sense. But before I talk more about design, I will just show you a picture of myself. Isn't that nice? You see, this is me, with a bit longer hair. This over here is my little brother. And my little brother, he's taller than I am. And the reason why he's taller is because my mother is Danish, and his mother is German, and our sister's mother is French, and our father traveled the world with a guitar. Yes, he did. All the time. He played guitar. And I was the first one, so he went to Copenhagen, and he was like, going around, and he met this beautiful blonde Danish girl, and he had a guitar, and he was like, hey, girl, bring, pregnant, immediately. And he did that very often. And he was also in Greece many times, actually. So if you see any curly-haired, charming boy or girl, it could be my siblings, you can tell them to come and meet me afterwards. It'd be great to meet them. No, but okay, the story is that my mother, she's an artist, and my father, he was a musician. So what I got as a child was pretty much like drumstick from my father and pencil from my mother. So it's always been about creation. And with my brother, we had one shared passion, and that is music. And together we have done a lot of music. And it's just for you to understand where I come from as well. And that is not only about design and architecture, but it's also about the creation. And actually being a creative is many things. As a chef, you can be a creative. As a lawyer, you can be creative as well, actually, sometimes a little bit too creative. But as a musician, I think it's the parallel because it's the same way of doing it. When I show you this heartbreaker sofa I draw, it was actually because I was heartbroken. Then you draw a sofa that kind of gives you the energy. And the same you do with a piece of music. You write a song because you have a special emotional and feeling. And I think that's very important. But I'm just going to play you one song now from my brothers and I. We have done hundreds of songs together. And this one was particular because it was a very, very big hit 10 years ago. So it's actually a 10-year anniversary today. Isn't that fantastic? I would like an applause now, please. Thank you. And also, I would like an applause after I play the music because I am a sensitive artist. So, you know, I want you to really rock to this music. Are you ready for that? And then just go crazy because you've been walking around all day and looking at furniture and stuff. So it's good to sit down and be a little bit like this. Okay, so you ready? Excellent. Fantastic. Applause. Now, this is also storytelling because the two things of being a designer and an architect and a musician was very important in actually going for my childhood dream. And my childhood dreams always started with this.
Willy Wonka, the amazing chocolatier. Willy Wonka, everybody give a cheer. He's not as clever and so smart, he barely can restrain it. With so much generosity, there was no way to contain it.
And if you don't know what that was Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Because when I was 10 years old, I always took the train with my mother from the rural part of Denmark in the middle of the countryside. We were driving through a small village called Struer. And in Struer was Bang & Olufsen. So it was like, dung, 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 next station is Struer. I was like, home of Bang & Olufsen. It was like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. I could really work in there. I could be magnificent. I could, be his assistant. I could be like Charlie. Or maybe I could be an Oompa Loompa, but I would rather be Charlie and assist him in creating magical universes. So happens to be many, many years after, a guy called Mr. Mantoni, he called me up and said, Johannes, we need a creative director of chief creative officer for Bang & Olufsen because the company is in big crisis. Would you like to help me be that? And I was like, wait a moment, I haven't tried that before and it's my childhood dream. Yes, I would do that. So I joined the company, and what is a creative director for the company? First of all, it's a guy that speaks, and I do that a lot, if you can imagine that. And it's also a guy that participates in stupid promotions for car manufacturers like this Mercedes, being an arrogant European.
And what exactly would you know about modern luxury?
Quite a lot, actually, quite a lot. And that is, of course, because in Mercedes-Benz cars, you had Bang & Olufsen equipment. Kind of a stupid thing, but fun to participate in. No, really what you do as a creative director is, of course, you look at the brand, the past, the present, and the future, and you decide the direction that this brand should go in. And this is very much storytelling as well, ladies and gentlemen. Because without the storytelling in a brand, you get nowhere. Without the storytelling in the product creation, you cannot create products that are magical. You cannot create products that actually give you something more than just being a loudspeaker, for instance. So one of the first things we created under my leadership was a new brand called B&O Play, because the existing brands had everything from headphones that was like, 300 euros to the biggest television that was 103,000 euros, because it was 103-inch big. So that means that it should be, 1,000 euros per inch, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It was absolutely crazy. And by the way, that was without the remote. That was extra. And without the batteries as well. And you also need a crane to lift it into your home. And you probably also need a couple of I-beams to lift it, to just carry the weight of it. So creating something new like this and actually creating new products. Because if you look at this black thing over here, that's a loudspeaker, right? Magnifying my voice like blah, 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 blah. That's me. So to make more of those would be a failure. But to make something that was more approachable, like this little speaker called the A9, was the right thing to do. And the brief was actually create a speaker that is a piece of design furniture. So this one here is a speaker, it's like this. It's just standing there, year after year. You know, if you're husband and wife, you have it. Typically, the husband will take the speakers from his childhood dream in to your living room, and they're existing in the corner of the living room, which is standing there year after that. Then you have party that la 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 la. But most of the time, it's background music is more like and they're just standing there. They're passive elements. But this speaker is more like this. It's actually expressive. And to create a product with a story that is expressive is what it is about. Because otherwise you do the same as the rest. Same goes for, you know, speakers as fashion accessories like this little guy, or making, you know, a beach speaker that you can have in your handbag, or creating beautiful headphones, of course, something you can always wear that mature with time and become more and more beautiful the more you use them. Or actually go to the main brand, Bang & Olufsen, and actually help the innovation there as well, because that was godforsaken bad as well at that time, which is 7 or 8 years ago now when I started there. And actually to create remotes that were beautiful and more fitting a smaller hand, which was important for the brand, but also to put something as foreign as wood in front of the speakers, which I can tell you many stories about how it was in Bang & Olufsen, because it wasn't really like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It was more like full-bearded men, you know, middle-aged men, and when you ask them a question, say, so can we put wood in front of the speakers? Then you have a man from Denmark doing like this in his beard. For something that seems like eternity, like scratching his beard, and then all of a sudden, no. It's like, I was like, well, I'm pretty sure we can. No. And when you had this conversation going on and on and on for time, it's like, okay, I'm just going to do it myself. Thank you very much. And you're fired, you know. That was my approach in the end. But no one was fired. And we got wood on not only the televisions, but also on the products. So you can actually touch the product through the wood. Light comes, emission through the wood as well. And in front of the speakers as well. This one is a good example, as we talk about the speakers. This one is a best-selling Bang & Olufsen speaker ever, because it has wood in front of it. So before it was like, darling, we need to buy some new speakers. And, you know, Tip was like, oh no, not a speaker again. Not a black thing for the living room for the next 15 years. But then you walk in and you look at this one, it's like, that is actually cool. I want to fondle it. I want to touch it. It's not a passive element anymore. It's actually something that fits into your interior. And that is the storytelling of how you do product design more than just the product. And that I find very interesting. Or if you go absolutely berserk and you make this one, which might be the most expensive speaker in the world. I think they are 100,000 euros for a pair, which is completely idiotic. But on the other hand, it might also be the best speaker ever created. So we did very different products. And this was more like to show that we could do it. And actually, it's a really good speaker, and it sells a lot, believe it or not. Maybe because there's no financial crisis at the moment. So let's put it into that word. But you can do beautiful products if you don't have a beautiful store to do it in, which is maybe why more of you are here, is to talk about actually the interior design of things and the storytelling of that. This was the existing store for Bang & Olufsen, and that was more like, I would say, a mausoleum of things put up like boom, 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 everywhere. There was no direction in it. There was no design. And when you sell very expensive design products, you need to have a beautiful canvas to do it in. So we recreated that canvas and made it much more clean, actually recreating the whole concept of how we did these stores. Not only in the finishes, because realize, how many of you are doing design in here? Up with the hands. Okay, so a lot of you, and the rest of you, what are you doing? We discussed that over a coffee afterwards, for sure. No, but imagine, so it's not very difficult actually to put some nice materials into an interior design. It's not a big thing. I mean, and international trends will tell you that, oh, you need some brass, some marble, some dark wood, and some nice fabric, and so on and so on. But the difficult thing is to roll it out in 700 stores around the world, and also to make it cheaper than before, and also to do it faster than before. So for this, we did technical innovations, such as the technical installation in a Bang & Olufsen store before was 12 to 14 kilometers of wire, which is a lot, down to 4 to 700 meters in one store. And that was due to the way we constructed the whole electrical systems in the store, and that actually saved approximately 100,000 euros per store. If you can multiply that out when you roll out, it's a lot of money. And that kind of thing is also the role for us as designers. We have to look into that detail, because if we don't do that, we cannot roll out our dreams. So to be able to do our dreams, we need to do extra jumps sometimes, right? And also we did some innovation because you probably know Bang & Olufsen from something very magical. And we did that also, this is the Shanghai flagship store. And you can see these walls, they can move around. And you can sit on this sofa over here and you can actually watch the television, and the speakers behind you and the speakers in the front will connect, and you will have different experiences, and you just turn around very slowly. And it was very difficult to explain engineers that it shouldn't be like it should be like chai chi, like very soft feeling. And the interesting thing about this, it is immensely successful. This store is in Shanghai. Revenue-wise, it was number 300 before we refitted it. We refitted, and immediately after 1 month, it is number 3 in the world. Just revenue, because sales just went up. And some reasons is that many times, you have a typical, Chinese rich men walking in the door. You can recognize them by very, very big Swiss watch and fancy clothing, and pointing over and say, how much is that one? And the sales representative say, which one, sir? The television? No, the whole thing. So in China, people want to buy the walls as well. Bang & Olufsen walls, I don't think it's going to fly, just think about servicing and so on. But interesting thing is that if you do something extraordinary, it would actually add to the experience. And the experience is extremely important for a brand like that, because it's a luxury brand. The same goes for the speakers. This is a typical speaker room. Gentlemen, you can recognize it from many times. You wander into a hi-fi store and there's like 5,000 speakers, and they're like people. They're like, I'm a speaker. I'm a speaker. I'm a speaker. They have like characters, right? You can see like all these, most of them are wooden boxes, kind of coffin look, and not something you want in your living room really, right? But this is something we wanted to avoid, because Bang & Olufsen do a lot of speakers. So we did it more clean, as you can see here. And the whole idea is that you can come with your smartphone and you can connect, you can listen to your own music, and you can actually listen to only the speakers you want. So they simply rotate out of the wall, and you only listen to the speakers you want to purchase, hopefully. And this was a very efficient sales tool as well, and made everybody like, wow, especially in America. Oh my God, this is amazing. Wow, this is magic, yeah. So it's like, I'm going to take out my credit card now and buy all of this. So in America, it worked very well. But I think also what storytelling in retail is about is also how you actually do it in buildings. Because as an architect, of course, interior design is super interesting. But actually to do the creation where it is a building as well, it translates into a bigger purpose. And this one is the first Bang & Olufsen building in the world, and it's in Denmark. We actually had the opportunity to build it, on Tiananmen Square in Beijing or Times Square in New York, but we thought it was better to take like a small village near the factory in Denmark and build it there. It was more efficient for servicing and so on. That was a joke. You can laugh. Anyway, no, we built it there because the owner of this piece of land, he said, I really want a Bang & Olufsen store, next to the town hall and the church in this little village. And it's a nice little building made out of translucent brass, but what it can do, and that's what I like about doing architecture in a new way, is that it's actually a shop that is 24 hours open. You can communicate with this shop 24 hours a day. And you can see here, you have Jesus next to it, which is good, always, having a connection. And you have this translucent brass facade with all the layers can illuminate with different tones of white. But what you can do over in the window, there is a QR code where you can scan the QR code and you can take control of the Bang & Olufsen building for 5 minutes. And imagine people coming with their own music on their smartphone, connecting to this building, and all of a sudden they have a control. They can control the whole building, all the light and the pavement. They can play pretty loud music, actually. For the first week, you could also play your videos on the screens, but due to Danish imagination, we discontinued that very quickly, if you can imagine why. People are pretty promiscuous in that way. So we did that. So now it's only sound and light. But what is amazing, the owner of the building, a guy called Kenneth, he called me up and said, Johannes, you have to come and see the building in the weekend in the summertime. I said, yeah, I come, and we had some wine, and I said, now we're going to go down at 2 a.m. in the morning and see what people are doing with the building. And he was sitting and looking at his smartphone. He could see there was activity on his app. And we come down, and 30 people are having a party with the building, playing loud music, having rosé wine, 6 packs of beers, and like, yeah! And I'm just like, I actually got goosebumps right now, because as an architect, you want your building not to be a static element in an urban environment. You want the building to actually give people something back 24/7. And that we accomplished with this building, and that made me very, very proud. But with everything in storytelling, I think there's two things in the future that we as designers and architects, we can have a great influences. One is the future of retail design, because the future of retail design is doomed. Let's realize people are using their glass telephones or the internet to purchase stuff. They don't go into a store anymore and there's that nice gentleman or lady in there and you have a conversation together about buying this sweater or something. No, they just go online and say, my size is this one, return policy, blah, 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 and it gets shipped to them in 24 hours. You know, you don't need to leave your home ever. But if you really want people to be true to the brand, you need to give them reasons to come into your store. And those reasons cannot only rely on that you are, having a lot of stores. That's not enough. You actually to make it a destination. And this one is the destination. But for another brand, which is a Canadian bicycle brand called Argon 18, how many of you bike? Yeah, how many are on race bikes? Wearing Lycra? Oh, there's only a couple, I see that. That's great. So you know probably Argon 18. The rest of you will know it because it's going to be a world-famous brand. It's the greatest in the world. When? It is. It's right there. Yeah. So it will come later, and I will, invite you personally for a ride. Exactly. In Lycra. You have to promise me Lycra is very important. Like full body. I will do it as well. We could do it together. Yeah. So this store we created in Denmark because it is a good test market. The bicycle, I would say the bicycle culture in Denmark might be the most vivid in the world. Everybody is riding a bicycle. If there's a snowstorm, they ride a bicycle. If it's sunny weather, they ride almost naked on a bicycle. And the whole culture is just like bicycle, 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 which is wonderful for the environment and for people's fitness and so on. But when it comes to race biking, it's also a culture that is very, very strong. Even then we are a flat country, people love to bicycle. So this Canadian brand opened this first store and we created it. It took 1 year. Together with my colleague Alan, who's sitting further down the room, we created this storytelling about it to make a monastery of bicycling. Because a bicycle is kind of a man-machine. It's something that makes your body and your physics going faster. The only thing you have to do is use your muscles, use your aerodynamics, and all of a sudden you can go incredibly fast. Some of these guys goes, 80, 90 kilometers an hour on a bicycle. It's absolutely crazy. And they can do that because the bicycle is done right and the body posture is right and so on. And that is just an amazing thing. So we thought we have to create the modern monastery of bicycling, actually create something that can transform. Something that when you walk into it, it gives you like a wow. Not a store, but an experience. I'm just going to make you a small video here. Believe it or not, this store sells a lot of bicycles. And the reason why it does, because when people come in, the store changes all the time. Lighting changes. It's never colorful, it's always white, but it's a color temperature thing. It's like using warm light, using cold light, making small changes, making the whole room transform. For instance, when you press a button and the bikes come down from the ceiling, all the light focus on that one bike and it comes down like it's a guard. So we really mean it seriously when it has to be a monastery of bicycling. It has to be an experience every time. And that's why in the rollout of these stores, we will use the same concept in different modifications as well, depending on the geographic side. But to do future projects, you have to think really differently in creating them, because you can make one of these stores and you have all the people coming to that one because of the experience, or you can make 20 stores that has no experience, just with a bicycle. Oh, here's a bicycle. Okay, that's great. Okay, I'm gonna buy the bicycle. Okay, it's 10,000 euros. Oh my God, that's expensive. But in here, it's like 10,000 euro for a bicycle that come down from the ceiling like God. That's a bargain. I'm gonna have it right now. Actually, let me have two. So people are really going crazy about it. And this, I think, is really the future of the storytelling and what we do as architects and designers. And the same goes to hotels as well. Because Last year, we came with a creation of a hotel and resort in Iceland. How many of you have been to Iceland? Have you been to Iceland? Wow. They have a big future in tourism. I mean, if any of you have not been, oh, there's one guy. How was it? Cold, okay, yes. Yeah, it is. That's why it's called Iceland. Actually, you know, it used to be Danish, and Danish people, the Vikings, when they embedded into Iceland and Greenland, they were kind of drunk most of the time. So I think they actually mistaked the two countries from each other, because Greenland is actually ice, and Iceland is pretty green. So they came there and they raped, and they were like, "Skål!" Drinking wine, and you know, and then they forgot actually which of the two. They came back to Denmark like and said to the king, "This is Greek now, Iceland, Greenland. Yes, this is great." No, anyway, it is cold in Iceland, but it is a very transformative kind of environment. So you can have perfect sunshine, and then you can see in the horizon a storm is coming, and that storm comes. And it will, if it was in Athens, it would just blow the city away. It would just be like gone. But for Icelandic people, oh, it's just a bit of wind, you know, because they're so used to it. It's the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and you have no shelter for anything. It just goes around like this. But this is also what makes it magnificent and special. So we had a client coming to us with the dream about doing this big resort, and the piece of land actually is this triangle. It's 3.5 square kilometers of land, but it's not just any land. It is, of course, a very specific point. This is Iceland, is west, and what you have out here is a big glacier called Snæfellsnes. No, out here actually. And this is the piece of area, and we can zoom into it. You see, this is the piece of land. If you can see it from down there, haha, I can. This is the ocean, and this is the piece of land. And actually, to do a hotel here, it is 3.5 kilometers, no, 3.5 hours away from the airport, 2.5 hours away from Reykjavik, which is the capital, which is, you know, a very small city, as a matter of fact. And to do a hotel there is kind of crazy. But on the other hand, if you shouldn't be able to do a hotel there and make it a success, with Iceland's population of 350,000 people, and last year 3.5 million tourists coming, and all of these tourists, they don't want another 5-star hotel. They come to the conclusion they don't like more gold, more brass, more, you know, stuff that is actually something they can get anywhere in the world. No, they want, what do they want? Experience. If you don't create experience for people, you're doing the wrong thing. If you make a hotel in the middle of a nature resort like this, and you create a city experience, you're doing it wrong. So in all this, we had a pretty big job to work on. And we actually created very much a theme of how to do it, at what we achieve inwardly will change outer reality, which is a beautiful old quote, but actually is also very true for Iceland, because Iceland is such a powerful nature that if you do not, you know, dress proper, you know, there's an old saying in Iceland, also in Denmark, is not bad weather, it's just bad clothing. So if you have the right clothing on, you can go out in crazy storms and snowstorm, and you can be perfectly warm, no problem. You know, it's like, this is nice. It's just a bit of wind. But here it's a reality, because when you have a bunch of American tourists, you know, having their dream holiday coming to Iceland, and paying, you know, $1,000 per night per room, you want also to take care of them in a way that it actually is a shelter you create, and it's an experience. But what you want to do, you always want the nature to play a game in what you create. So we did that all the way through. Looking at our mood images in the storytelling was, of course, to create a lot of reflection of the nature. Instead of making a building, you know, that is like, you know, a big, you can easily make like a big, very, you know, heavy building stand there. So it's like, oh, there's the hotel. This is my building. But you could also look at how you can reflect the nature, because you really go there for the nature. Or you could go and inside the building and look at how you could do the transformations inside the building with the nature on your side all the way. Or you can look at how the contrast would work in your building. With all the way you create, always there's something that is contrasting the building itself. And of course also the way you look at how the nature will influence the building on the inside as well. For instance, letting the warm lagoons floating in the building, which was a very important thing and a very difficult thing to achieve as well. And then of course, making something that is escaping from reality. Because let's realize that when you create a hotel and you have a guest coming in, the guest doesn't want, you have an old saying that it's your second home, it's your home away from home. Yes, if you're a business traveler, you want a home away from home. You want a shower, a television, a chair, a desk, and a club sandwich. And that you can get anywhere in the world. But if you create something in the middle of nowhere, you have to make sure that you do not create a home away from home. You have to make sure that you create an experience they will never forget. And when you think about in the mind, where do I want to go back to? That place. You want them to come back again and again and again. You want them to become residents on distance. Because that's really what's going to make the future of hotels. Either it's going to be, the club sandwich and the bed and the TV and the shower, or it's going to be an unparalleled experience that you can get nowhere else. And that's the future of hotels. And that's what you have to do. Because if you do more 5-star hotels with gold, brass, velvet, and so on, I'm going to personally execute you all. No, that was a joke. Of course I'm not going to do that. But come on, guys. We need to create something new. We tried, at least. And this is a concept. We do not know if it's going to be built. It's unknown. It's a big investment. It's a risky investment. But I can still elaborate a little bit on how we are working with it, if you don't mind. So, those of you who have been to Iceland, you know that the Norwegian people was the first people to come to Iceland as settlers. It was actually not the Danish. And they came there with their ships many hundred years ago. And they possibly only have very, very little wood. And at that time in Iceland, there was no wood whatsoever. So they built their first houses based on the wood they had on their ship. Typically, they took one of the masts down from the ship. Maybe they have 2 or 3 masts. And they used one of them as the roof of the building. And that was the way to build the whole construction of the site. And then you didn't have any concrete or aluminum or glass at that time, but you did have grass turf and rocks. So the whole foundation was built in the same way, and that's why you see houses like that still being built in Iceland, completely the same way as the Norwegian settlers did many years ago. Then, obviously, the Danish came later and raped and did their mistakes and called it, Iceland and not Greenland and so on. And it wasn't changed because it was the same way of doing things. And even the newer architecture, this is from 1700, this building, is still based on the heavy base and a light top. And we thought, if we should do something that can reflect the nature, including the Red Mountains, which is surrounding this hotel, that's why it's called Red Mountain Resort, by the way, we had to do that differently. We have to reflect the nature. So we did a concept where we actually inverted it, making the heavy structure in the bottom being the structure that comes through the building, and making the heavy structure in the building become a translucent surface of a mirror. So all of the foundation of the buildings is actually made as mirror glass, so you can look in, you can look out, but you can not look in. And all the functions of the spa is based on that. And this is actually a plan of an old Icelandic house. You see here, you have typically the staples out here, and in here you have people living, and in here you have the food, because that's the most important thing to conserve. We did the opposite. We actually made all the buildings inside being a structure, and then everything around it is glass. So it's a different way to the approach of the architecture, and it gives you a different way of view, because when you walk around in the building, it will only be glass facades showing you the nature, and everything you walk into is a very solid building in the spa, for instance. And in this storytelling, now this is very small, so I'm just going to elaborate a bit on it. When we are doing a new project anywhere in the world, and it doesn't matter if it's cupcakes or if it's products or if it's a building, it's the same way of treating it. It has to have a story. If it doesn't have a story, it has no future. So sometimes you find stories that you don't know exist. And in this particular place, we looked at the old book called The Journey to the Center of the Earth. You probably know that one. Fantastic book, which is actually going on that the people are going into the glacier of Snæfellsnes. It's really called that, Snæfellsnes, which is the glacier nearby this proposed resort in Iceland. And then they are going through volcanic caves and tunnels and ending up coming out in South Italy, which is a fantastic story. You should really read it. It's worth a read. And that was the first thing, but we thought, okay, that's kind of a given fact. But then we looked into Icelandic sagas, and there was one really amazing saga about a guy called Bagdur. And Bagdur, he was a half man, half troll. I'm not really sure which half was the troll and which one was the man, but maybe it was a blend, like I'm half Irish and half Danish, right? So he was kind of a trolley guy, and he was really tired of the human beings, because the human beings was always treating him with disrespect because he was not a pure human being. So in his despite, he moved into the glacier of Snæfellsnes, and in that glacier, in the tail, he got into a lot of different stages as a human being. Well, as a troll human being. And those stages was extremely interesting to look into in the creation of the spa story and the spa journey for this hotel. And that was actually the emotional stages of a human being. And when I looked at these things, these stages that was in the tale, it is exactly the same emotions that I have every time I go on I have a small mountain resort in Italy. I'm not going to tell you which one it is. But when I go there, it's because I'm lost going on. And you become lost with yourself. And you have to know when it is time to check out. So I go in this small mountain resort, and there was no cell phone connection. It's just like completely away. That is because I feel lost. And the same things go for the half troll, half human Bagdur. He felt lost, and that's why he moves into the mountain. And in this mountain, he gets through some different stages. He becomes contemplative, which is more being have melancholy, missing what was in the past. It was better in the past. I want the past, I don't want the future, and so on. And then you go into being exposed with his fears. Maybe I'm sick, maybe something's wrong with me. People don't like me anymore. What's going on? And then comes into the confrontation of yourself, like, I have to change my life. I'm doing everything wrong, So all these moods he coming into finally clarity of saying, it's going to be okay. I just need to relax. I need to concentrate and focus on myself. And in the end, you come out as being enlightened. And in the tale, being enlightened was more like, enlightened in this way. But if you translate that into a spa journey, it's a pretty interesting story to tell, as a matter of fact. Because let's realize it. You have your smartphone within a distance of 20 centimeters of your body right now. Am I wrong? Yeah, everybody has it near because you actually spend more time with that than you spend with your lover. Maybe it is your lover, in reality. And it's kind of alarming. And in the future, if they stay the same way, that everybody's like, blah, 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 looking into that instead of looking into the eyes of the people around them. They cannot date without an app. They cannot, communicate with an app. They send messages to each other, sitting next to each other. You need places where you can go and you can get lost. You need to get lost. It's very important in the future. And that's what we have to create, ladies and gentlemen. Not more 5-star hotels with club sandwiches. We have plenty of those. For God's sake, create something that gives you an opportunity to get away from the world. The translation, of course, into the spa experience, this is like a floor plan of the spa. But what is interesting is that the way we used it is to actually use the different areas and call them that. For instance, the steam chambers is lost, obviously because it's foggy. So you're lost, you walk around in there. The contemplative is the clay bath, is the massage. The exposed is the fire bath, the sauna. The clarity is the ice bath. And the confronted is the grotto, which I will show you a section of. And the enlightened is the Dead Sea. So all of these different elements in the spa has a story. And also, if you go to the rooftop, you can see actually the different formations here is the top of each of the sections of the functions inside. Because that is how we did the inside out, which I will show you in a moment. For instance, this is the reception for the spa. And what you can see here, we have used as few materials as possible. It is concrete, of course. It, to your information, is an earthquake zone, very active one. It's wetlands. It is also where all the storms comes in because it's going completely west, and it's actually a terrible place to build anything. That's why concrete with separate foundations is very needed to do this. The good thing is that it's a hot spring place, so you have to dig only 200 meters down, and you have almost boiling water coming up. So all the floors are made out of riverstone terrazzo that were made into these beautiful floors that are all heated. You have the steam room here, for instance, also using the big formations of the rocks. You have the clay bath like that. Obviously, this is a visual, is not existing, but it has to be something that fits with the purpose of it. You have the transition spaces here, where you can always look out in the nature, and you have these rain showers you have to walk through to get washed down if you go into the clay bath, for instance. And if you go into the fire bath, this lady, she's smiling, but she really shouldn't. It's 42 degrees, it's really hot. Or you go into one of the 4 saunas that is around in the resort as well. You can see, actually, you have glass out to the nature. And it's mirrored on the outside, so you can look out, but not in. That was the whole purpose. And this back of house, well, landscaping outside is actually the back of house that is covered below it. So we have done a lot to actually make the back of house more or less invisible for the guests of the hotel. And then we have the one called Confronted, which is actually basically a water slide down in a concrete cave where you end up in lukewarm water, which is really confronting you, I believe, because you want it also, I mean, a spa experience should not necessarily just be, oh, this is wellness, this is nice, because, I mean, that's easy to get, but it has to be an experience. It has to be something where you get your fears out as well. And that's what we created this one here. There's only 1 square meter of light coming in from daylight, from the bright months, which is the summer year, whereas 24 hour light, because that's how it's in Iceland. But in the dark month, there was no daylight. So it's either or. It's like darkness or light. So that's what we also emphasize on this. And the same goes for the nature lagoon, which is in the back of the building here, of course the salt bath as well. And of course, for the 5 days a year where you can actually have a tan in Iceland, you will go on the rooftop. And what is interesting here is that this pool is actually the roof of the steam chambers below. So when you lie in the steam chambers, you can look up through very heavy glass, and you can see people swimming above. Maybe not, because condensation would do its. But this light coming down, I believe it can be a very beautiful experience actually to do that. And the different formations, this is, for instance, the grotto, where you take the slide down. So this is the channel where the light comes down. So everything is built in that way with a purpose for the different areas to fulfill that. And this is from the nature lagoon in the back, where you can see the bottom here is mirror glass all the way over, and you have the different formations from the spa coming through the building to understand that. And then we have done an art trek outside, where we have the 5 senses from the experiences, well, 6 senses actually, from Bagdur's journey out in art pieces. And this one here is called Lost, and this is actually a 25-meter tall staircase you walk up, and from there you can see the ocean. So we did it in every sense of the project, is to give that journey meaning all the way through. We also did it to the cocktail menu, actually. We talked about that as well, how the drinks should be corresponding with the experiences as well. A drink called Lost, that's pretty good, I think. But here you can see actually the transition between the spa and the main hotel is done in this way. You have aluminum panels here that is a soft reflection. You have plaster ceilings, you have the terrazzo floor, and then you just have glass, simply cantilevered out, where you can see the nature. And this actually is the actual spot where it is, this rendering. The red mountains that are beautiful red colors are in the back. So it really is, facing man versus nature all the time. Doesn't matter where you go. In the hotel lobby as well, it's a very chill design. We don't want to, do any fanciness of the design. It just has to be comfortable, and you don't think about if it's a fancy chair you're sitting in. It's just comfy. That's all. And that's what we want to do all the way through the hotel. Not design it, just make it a nice place to relax. And same goes for the functions like libraries, gym, yoga room, cocktail bar. It's the same kind of very soft style. But also when you walk out of your hotel room, from all the hotel room stores here, you always look into nature. You always look into a kind of arranged garden in the middle of the hotel room lobbies. And of course, if you are in the room, you have unparalleled views out to the nature, to the wetlands. And if you bring your snobby teenager, who's lying in that sofa, he can also be entertained by, no, actually he cannot, because I think there should be no TV and no internet here. So he cannot be entertained. He has to relax and take a walk in the wetlands, right? The main reason for most people to go to Iceland is because of the Northern Light. And if you haven't been to Iceland yet, you have to go, just alone for that reason, because it is amazing. There's nothing in your life that can ever give you a more, unparalleled experience of nature, because you just stand there and it feels like green stuff, green matter is flying into your head. You cannot touch it. It's in the horizon, but it feels like it's right next to you. It's fantastic. And this is why it is a good idea to create experiences in a place where there is complete darkness, where there's complete silence and quiet, because in the wintertime, this is what you're going to see. It's a very powerful thing. And in the summertime, you're not going to see it, but then you can have other experiences, horseback riding and go in the spa and so like that. Now, of course, we did this project. It was a competition, and we published it. And the owners of this project, they didn't have any idea what hit them. because the day we published this, it was everywhere, of course, in Icelandic news, like all headlines. Big hotel is opening in Snæfellsnes Peninsula, it's called. And we're like, okay, wow, this, we just want to publish it. And then the whole world has been grabbing it. It's been on CNN, CNBC, BBC, CBS, and even Bloomberg TV went up there on the empty site to film it. Here's going to be a hotel, maybe. So it has been really crazy how much attention has been put into it. But what it tells me is that the world needs this. The world needs places that are dream spaces. They don't need more. What don't they need? 5-star hotels, and they don't need more club sandwiches. Exactly. Maybe you can get a club sandwich here. There's Americans coming anyway. So, but the point being is, give, for God's sake, experiences. And holistic experiences. And actually, I'm just going to show you one thing here before I end my long speech here. Because when I grew up in Denmark. And in Denmark, we are very free people. And we are very holistic. And I particularly grew up in a place that is extraordinarily holistic. And I'm going to show you a childhood picture now. Are you ready for that? Because you can see where I grew up, I was a fashion icon of dimensions. You have to notice the details. You can see I'm the only one who actually wears clothing in this picture. And I was coordinated, it was like the year of 77, so it was like red was on all fashion shows in the world. Shanghai Fashion Week, New York, London, Paris. It was red. So I coordinated with red hair, red underwear, socks, and a red wagon. And the other people here being naked, and you have a cow. So I grew up in a hippie camp in Denmark, in the rural part of Denmark, with my mother, who loved to be like a bohemian hippie. And it was actually kind of a crazy place to grow up, because in this place, I had the opportunity to play all the time. And everything was very holistically founded. For some reason, I was always on television. If there was anyone with a camera, I was in the camera, believe it or not. But this footage also showed that the whole, holistic experience of the hippies, I play drums, I still do that, was really about having a free, way of living. And in this time living here, I didn't, sorry about that. I didn't go much to school. I was actually only 3 years in school in my life. And when I decided to move away from the hippie camp, I was only 12 years old, which is kind of young, if you could say so. But the purpose of that is if I always alight on the hippies, you ask a hippie, hey, can we do this, hippie? I said, yeah, tomorrow, man, I'm just going to smoke this. And you had that constantly going. I was playing drums. I went to the other, the grown-ups that was like smoking, like, hey, can we do a band together? Yeah, let's do a band. I was like, yeah, I can play drums with the grown-ups. And then the next day, should we do this band now? Yeah, tomorrow, man, yeah. So when you're 12 years old and you have ambitions, you're the best drummer in the world, at least in the hippie camp, you want to move away. So I did. I moved to Copenhagen and I started working in a drum store. And when I was 15, I was bored. I did my first lighting design company. So when I was 19, nightclubs, and here we are today. So this is really my story. But what is interesting as well, what has been carrying me all the way through was this golden spacesuit. Because this one has made me, and I'm serious about this, believe that what I do is something I can move on with. It's something that is important. And, realizing, standing here today as well, and speaking to hotel people, I also think it's on time that I should design the Hilton Galactica Hotel. So if you know anyone from Hilton, you can tell them to give me a call. Thank you. And now, this was actually a speech. It was not really a workshop. But now, it's a workshop. So now you can ask questions. And they can be fantastic, they can be stupid as well, and they can be great. And we can have a conversation about it, and you should just shoot on. And I think there is a young man down there with a microphone, is that correct? Yes, fantastic. And maybe there's 2 with a microphone? Yes. And those people will come to you with a cup of coffee. No, not with a cup of coffee. With a microphone, and you can ask questions. So, who has a question? There's a young lady over there. You need the microphone, I think.
Hello.
Hi.
I would like to ask about the hotel in Iceland.
Yes.
About the glass you are about to create. Whether it's going to be humid between the temperature of inside outside. How can you deal with that? Did you ever thought about it?
You mean the humidity?
The humidity, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean it
Isn't
really.
isn't it going to be very blurred and not clarified to see?
You mean so the glass would be what do you call it? A difference in temperature.
Yeah.
See that's exactly one of the big problems because the weather is changing so fast in Iceland. So you have to have actually incredibly thick windows. It might be the most expensive thing of the whole project is actually glass. And now Iceland does not produce glass. They produce aluminum. That's pretty much it. And the reason why is because it's free. Power is free in Iceland because the power from the water down there can actually produce a lot of free electricity with big turbines. So the good thing about this is that you can warm up all of the floors completely free if you do it the right way. And in that way you can avoid condensations. But in the spa it will be a problem for sure because you have the humidity coming from the lagoon coming in, and that's very hot water. A lot of steam will be generated. But of course we take the temperature down from around 89 degrees I think it is when it comes up, and chill it down, running it through different things to make it into a temperature you can use in the lagoon as well. So of course it's a project, and there's no doubt it's not something you just do like snap, it works. It's something that is a big engineering project to do this. But we will have to do, if it gets built, to work with that, both the ventilation as well. But I would like to avoid at any given point that there's any kind of air conditioning in a hotel like this. It has to be natural air. You're welcome. There's a lady standing over there. Hello, lady.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to our country. Welcome to Athens.
Thank you. I'm very, very happy to be here.
I would like to ask you something.
Yes.
During your speech, you were encouraging us to create a unique experience.
Yes.
And you mentioned once or twice, I don't remember exactly, that this is going to bring back and back our guests to us.
Is to be what, sorry? I didn't get that.
This unique experience is going to bring our guests back to us.
Yeah.
But isn't that controversial? For example, a unique experience is supposed to be once in a lifetime's experience. So if you keep going back and back, how is it going to be a unique experience to keep this?
Well, so once in a lifetime experience, I believe that was actually the dream of the elderly generation, saying, I'm going to save my money and I'm going to go on this once in a lifetime cruise in the Baltic Sea or to Iceland and so on and so on. Because if you look at the younger generation now, and let's realize it, before a project like this get realized, it's going to be maybe four years before it's finished and built. And working a lot in Southeast Asia, as we do, you find out that the younger generation, they are very fast consumers. And they are typically young couples, maybe in their start 30s, before they get children. They get older and older as well. So the demographics of that is pretty interesting. And those people travel for experience because they have seen all the 5-star hotels in the world. They don't want to see more club sandwiches. They're not interested. They want to go a place where they can go and really be treated specially. And those people are the people you have to aspire to, because those people will come back. If the experience was exactly what they were looking for, it's going to be a retaining business to come back. I'm a good example. I always come back to the places I like. I come back to the places that gives me that experience, exactly what I need. And I think if you don't do something absolutely specific to create experiences, you're never going to have that opportunity of clients coming back, especially in a place like that. So that's why I think the once-in-a-lifetime experience is a little bit in the past. The future is, if it's the best experience, I will come back for more. In my belief, anyway. Next questions? There's a lady down there as well. Hi. We actually many people here, so we need microphones to be able to hear each other. Sorry about that.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is, when you want to make an experience, the hotels you showed were mostly experiences that had something to do with nature and with wellness, but people mostly go to city centers because that's where all of the hustle and bustle is.
Yeah.
How can we make such an experience in something different and not a 5-star hotel in the city?
You mean to make like an urban resort?
Yes, something like that.
Yeah.
Like from an old building, for example?
Yeah, I think those exist, and I think there's many successful transformations of an old building into a new, and to a new experience. I do think that many of those, I mean, it's also a question of how you build your business. So to make a huge spa in the middle of the city, you know, I mean, it's super expensive to retain a business based on a spa. So if you put your business in your food and beverage, or you put it on the room, or you put it on your plus services, which would be a spa, then you really have to have a good business case. And I think that's why you see only the 5-star hotels plus like the Mandarin Orientals and Four Seasons and so on, they will invest in a big spa because otherwise people are not willing to pay the higher price for the room. So it's something that is a beautiful wish to do something like that in the city center, but if you don't have the land, you know, to give away, then all of a sudden you look very much into the yield of how you can actually create a business out of it. And as architects and designers, we have to look at that as well, because if we create a product that is mission impossible, that's never ever gonna, you know, make the money back to the property owner, we are the one who are stupid architects. That's what they're gonna think anyway, right? Or we have talked them into a sweet dream about something that can never ever be built, and then we are doing something even more stupid. So that's why we have to be very careful about how we make the proposals. It has to be fitting to the nature of the people who built it. Yes. And that's why, you know, I think that balancing point is something, if we have more, you know, imaginary hotel operators and owners, and property owners as well, then maybe we can build up something great for the future. I hope, at least.
I hope as well.
Yeah, it will be a great future.
Thank you.
And there's a gentleman down here.
How would you balance between repeated experience, as you explained, and
How would you what, sorry?
how would you balance
Use the microphone.
experience and value for money?
How would I balance between experience and value for money? Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Because if you make a great experience, I mean, and value for money is different from everyone. Maybe for you, it's a club sandwich. Maybe for someone else, it's like an unparalleled spa experience. So it all depends on the people you attract as well. But if you make a hotel that tries to satisfy everyone in a place like this, in a nature resort, you probably are doing the wrong thing. Because
No, but if you want to create experience, you create cost.
yes, yeah, of course you
So
do.
it's expensive.
Yes, very expensive.
Then you have to, the client have to be prepared to pay for it.
Exactly.
Then there is many clients who says, it's an experience, but it's not value for money.
No, exactly. But I mean, if you work with them, an example, the Hungarian resort, they say it's a nature resort. It's 40 minutes away from Budapest city, so it's a short car drive. It's a beautiful part of Hungary. And there, in the beginning, it was like, oh, maybe we should not make a spa. But then they say, I mean, in this destination, if you don't make a spa that is better than everyone else's, nobody's going to come. Because you don't go there as a business person. You wouldn't go unless there is a conference. But that hotel has a conference part for the weekdays, and it has a big spa for the weekends. So it's a question of understanding who is going to be your guests and what values do they want. What is a value-creating parameter? So if they made a small spa, they will not get the weekend guests because there's lots of other, resorts that will give you a big spa. But on the other hand, if you don't have the conference facilities and all the breakout rooms and the 4 restaurants, you don't get the conference people. So it's finding that balance you lie in. And with a spa, you have a huge cost, but you also have an attraction that will make people come. And if you give them the right service and you give them the right experience, they will probably also come back.
Thank you.
So that's where the junction we're in. But it's always difficult. It's about numbers, reality, like everything else in life. Numbers. Next question. If any. Oh, all the way down the back.
Hi.
Hi.
First of all, well done for the speech. It was really nice.
Thank you. I'm happy.
My question is, for the hotel in Iceland, you talk a lot about nature and how the people should be more connected to it, but I see a little use of natural materials, and it's all about concrete and glass. What about preserving the nature and actually making the people feel actually in the material you use in the hotel more connected?
Yeah, but it's kind of interesting. So, because I actually agree with you. But when you realize that you're building a hotel in a highly active earthquake zone with daily earthquakes, I'm not kidding you, small ones, of course, which is a wetland at the same time, so it sinks, which has like, you know, the ocean right in front of it and will blow your head off, you have to think that what you build is something that can take all of that at one time. The requirements is very high. I think we are talking about the highest valuation of earthquake risks in the world is right there. So when you do that, you have to think very carefully about the materials. And either we could say, okay, we can cut off stone, you know, and use that in the project from the nearby Red Mountains, if we are allowed to do that. We could use this kind of materials. But for instance, in Iceland, there is next to nothing of wood, because it's not a forest place, it's very, very little. Yeah. So to use the local wood would not make sense, because it's not a good quality wood. Okay. So you have to import it. The concrete is a more stable structure to do it. And the reason why we use it that way, that we are tinting it red, is to actually, you know, making it fit into the nature. And the reason why we use the glass is because it has to be a shelter for the human being as well. So you can stand inside in safety and look at the crazy weather outside that is for sure going to be. So it was very much finding that balance of those materials, using it, you know, as graceful as possible. I mean, the floors are river stones that makes it into a terrazzo. That might be the only natural material used from Iceland. Of course, the mix for the concrete as well. But you're totally right. It's very difficult. So
you normally do try to include natural materials in your project, just in
Absolutely.
Case in this case. Okay.
Absolutely, where it makes sense. We shouldn't use natural materials where they don't make sense.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
You know, in Asia, for instance, you say marble is spread all over all big resorts. The truth is, if you take Italian or Greek marble and you take it to Italy, it's going to be, you know, yellow and red and you know, orange tinted very quickly, because the humidity is very different. So you have to, you know, the material has to actually fit to the, you know, the temperature and the humidity of the place. And that's why I think, you know, natural materials from the place you build the product.
Agreed. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And there's a couple of questions down here as well, in the front. You get a good cardio from this.
Hi, and thank you for your speech.
Thank you.
In both the hotels you presented, both of them were hotel spas, basically. The question is, were you brought into the projects after the owners decided they want to go for a spa, or were you invited earlier in the process and you actually directed maybe the owners to maybe you should go for this? And in your opinion, what's the architect's place in when an owner of someone is planning to have a hotel and they invite the architect to join them, do you think the architect should have a say on the direction of the project and the hotel itself? Even experience, like you create experiences, so maybe, you know, the owner has an idea about what he wants to make, but like maybe the architect should step in and say, well, hold on a sec, maybe this is not what you need to do here.
I totally agree with you. But that's exactly the purpose. So you see very often, it's really like a phenomenon around the world. So if you take a Danish client, for instance, where we come from, they go to us because they want actually our opinion. If you take a Chinese, they don't. They come to us and say, I want this. Say, yeah, but I mean, if you just want this, you can do it yourself. Yeah, but I want you to do this. And, you know, in the beginning, you get fascinated about doing it, but honestly speaking, I don't want to do that. So if it's not a collaboration between it, and it has to be a collaboration that only includes the ideation of the project, the concept, but also the numbers. Because if we just make a dream project, you know, this whole building can fly up to the moon and back again, we are not creating reality. We have to create something that's based on what is the current reality for the client. How can we bring that value out? How can it be a good business? Because if we don't create a good business, we create, you know, it's like a backlash for ourselves. So I think it is very important to get involved as early as possible in the whole creation of the concept, the storytelling, the financials as well. You know, how can we do the best possible product for the money available? And do we do something that is more amazing? Should you find more money? Or is it going to be a bad business? So all that is very important. But I think it really depends where you work in the world. I haven't tried to work in Greece before, so...
Come and try it. You should try it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it can only be fun.
Maybe.
No, I think it can be fun, for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? There's a lady right down there.
Hello.
Hi.
Let me thank you also for the wonderful speech.
Thank you. I'm happy.
I would like to ask you about something. You highlighted many times the importance of experience.
Yes.
Creating an experience. And on the contrary, you said about the joke about the 5-star hotels.
Yes.
I wanted your opinion on luxury, and not just comfort, but top-notch luxury. The high-cost furniture, the design, and of course the customer service. Is that an experience for you? To take the customer, the client, through an emotional and psychological path of feeling important. Is that an experience for you?
Honestly speaking, you know what I think about it?
Tell me.
Bullshit. It's bullshit. What the luxury brands and the hotels does in the world is that they play on people's insecurities. You come in and you're like, Mr. Torpe. I'm like, they know me. Of course they know me because I pay, $500 per night. They Google me and they know everything about me. And the airlines are doing the same. The first time I tried that was Qatar Airways. Already at check-in, first time I fly with them. Mr. Torpe, we're so happy you fly with us. What? Is that a sign anywhere? It supposedly is good service, but when you go into luxury stores as well, into a Dior store or a Prada store, and you have these people looking at you like, give you the elevator look like this and checking you out and then advising you very carefully, they are highly skilled, trained people for that exact purpose. But the reality of luxury is, it is bullshit. We don't need luxury. We need things that works. We need something that is functional. But at the same time, as being a designer, we also need something that evoke our emotions. And people have different kind of emotions. Some people like, crystal and gold and silver, and other people like natural wood. It all depends on the person and your expectation from it. But the service of luxury and the brand of luxury and this pushing things up and making it very, very important is pure bullshit. But it's a good business. Yes. So if you can make a business of bullshit, luxury is it. Absolutely. So if the brand and the product doesn't have, if it doesn't give you a true value of something of authenticity, of quality, yeah, exactly, and something that is really a value by itself, it is a bullshit thing. But sometimes we just want bullshit, right? I mean, I like, going into a Four Seasons hotel, having my breakfast served exactly at 7:30, ding dong, says like that, comes in, the newspaper is fresh, it's like, like that. And they take all these small silver lids of the perfectly arranged breakfast. I also pay like, €100 for the breakfast, but, it's like, ta-da! It's a nice experience once in a while. But honestly speaking, I mean, it's bullshit.
Quite vain and unimportant.
Yeah, it's not very important. It's important if it's important for you. That's what it is. So it's really what you believe in, if you want it. But, a piece of furniture, a chair where you can sit and you sit comfortably can be, just as good as one that has gold and, silver, velvet everywhere and so on and so on. That makes it more like this. It can be the same experience sitting in it, but maybe not looking at it. So it depends really on which eyes look at it and what importance it is and where you are in your life. That's why I think it's a psychologically interesting thing. And actually doing it Bang & Olufsen, looking at Bang & Olufsen, the big brand, as a luxury brand, because, God damn it, 103,000 euro television, that's luxury. I mean, it's the same amount of money for a sports car. TV, sports car, or an apartment, or something like that. So that's luxury. I mean, if you afford that, it's because it's a luxury in your life. But there's also premium, and B&O Play, the headphones, that's premium. It's not luxury, because it's something that is achievable. So whole that world, it plays on insecurities of what is right and wrong, and the brands plays on how you look when you come in, and those shoes are the last season, so you're not luxury anymore. You should buy the new shoes. You really need the new shoes now to be a better human being, right? I'm sure you get what I mean.
Thank you.
That's why I think it's
Thank you so
bullshit.
much.
So, lady in the front.
Hi, and thank you for the speech.
You're welcome.
I would like to ask you that if you have ever been faced with two companies exporting the same product. For example, another bicycle company comes to you and asks you to design a concept store, for example. How do you deal with this? And do you think that imitation is a problem? or that imitating, for example, some things from the previous concept is a bad or a good thing, actually?
It depends what you do. So if you do something as specific as that bicycle store, it would be very, very difficult if Cannondale, the competitor, one of them, came and say, hey, can you do the same for us? I would be like, no. Because that would be completely, breaking all rules of what is good behavior. Many companies probably could do it if they wanted to. Say, well, it's a different department. It's not me, But I believe in that you have to be, if you want a long relationship with the people you work for, you have to actually be honest and very transparent to them. When it comes to a hotel, or a restaurant, the more you do restaurants, we have been doing like 100 restaurants, I think. The more you do restaurants, the more you understand what works and what does not work. And that's the power of, trying and failing and trying and failing. And when you do restaurants, you know what works and you know what not work. So that knowledge you will take to the next product and it just becomes better and better and better, and also a better and better business. So it depends. If you do something that is never seen before, then you can only do it once. If you do something that is a commodity for most people, with variations, you have to look very carefully at how you do it better every time to give people what they actually need, which is not a service, it's a brain. And your brain and my brain are two different. So you have one experience, I have another one. And that's really our value as human beings, is that we absorb all that and we can do it better and better and better and better and better. And in the end, people will come and just trust us to do the job. They will not say, I want that. You say, you don't need that. Okay, I'll listen to you. But they only do that when you have, like stripes. It's like the captain on the flight, like, I'm the captain. You're the first lieutenant. It's not the same. So with clients, we always do that. We look at what their objective is, and we don't try to replicate something we have done before. Okay. With the music, for instance, we did this hit, that song I played for you, that was like 15 million sold copies. And then in 1 year, we tried to make a new one that could sell just as much. We failed completely because you cannot do it. It's not honest. It's like, I have to do it again. It's like, for God's sake, don't do it again. Just, innovate, do something else. And we have to do the same as architects and designers all the time. Otherwise, we grow in, like, become a tree, something.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anyone else? It seems like you have no more questions. Either it's because I'm so good at answering in a broad perspective, or you're bored, or you just want a cup of coffee. Which one? Coffee? Have some coffee. It was great speaking to you. Thank you so much. And we have a date in Lycra, bicycles. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.